Hi, everyone, and welcome to the special simulcast, the Neil Haley Show in the Storehouse Media Group podcast. We're their host, Sherrie Price of Storehouse Media. How are you, Sherrie?
I'm good, Neil. I'm good. Thank you. Just excited about today's show.
All right.
Yeah. And today we have Mitch Webb. And welcome, Mitch, to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. We're excited because you have such a topic that's such a deep dive niche. I don't know how many people have heard of it, but you are a nervous system coach and you help high performers, entrepreneurs, and those struggling with anxiety, burnout, and chronic symptoms reconnect with their bodies and reclaim their energy. How many people can say they're there? I mean, I mean, seriously. I mean, that's just like that's the world here, especially with your your baby boomers, your Gen Xers. We're like at that as we're trying to wind down to retirement. So tell
Mhm.
us, you have such a story. And first of all, let us know what that nervous system coach is and what it was that got you into it.
Yeah, great question. What a nervous system. I mean, here's the thing. I have a tough time describing it myself. It's taken 20 years of being in the health industry, seeing what works, what doesn't. And really, it's been a pain to passion type of journey where my own struggles with symptoms like anxiety and gut issues, insomnia, autoimmune, mystery illness, stuff that I tried everything to get better and nothing seemed to help. I mean, I did the diets, I did the supplements, the protocols, the detox, and really when I got to those things were supportive for sure. And I'm a big fan of health and wellness, but when everything's not working, what did was the nervous system, and the nervous system really kind of connects to everything. And so when our nervous system is dysregulated, when it's sensitized, those are kind of two different things that we can unpack. But basically, the nervous system is connected to all the major systems of the bodies: our hormone, digestion, circulation, energy levels, how we sleep. When that gets dysregulated, when our body senses that there is a threat, then we start to kick off all these symptoms. And a lot of times, those symptoms are just asking us to pay attention. But we live in a world that says, hey, anxiety is bad, insomnia is something we need to fix, we need to put a band aid on. But that actually reinforces to the nervous system that it's a problem. And so, what I do is I help people learn the language of their nervous system, build the capacity to be with, um, what's going on in the body. A lot of times when we have chronic symptoms, we live in our head. We try to think our way to safety, and that makes sense. But what I teach my clients is to go within, to be their own medicine. We can interpret what our body's telling us, and we don't have to have symptoms when we can respond instead of thinking it's a problem, trying to make it go away, or fix it.
Exactly. And figuring that out was important for you, wasn't it?
Oh man, it took trying everything out through the kitchen sink, and I learned what worked and what didn't work.
Well, I just want to give some highlights of your story. And you're thinking, is that right? I'm like, oh my gosh, anything else could have gone wrong. You
Yeah.
had a traumatic brain injury while you were in college, traveling abroad.
Hmm.
And then things got worse. You moved into a home with toxic black mold. You
Hmm.
developed Lyme disease, heavy metal toxicity, diabetes, and chronic fatigue. You gained over 50 pounds. You stopped sleeping and you felt your mind was slipping away. You didn't know where you were. You forget, even while driving through your own hometown. It was scary. You were suffering. And then you had to turn
Hmm.
around.
Well,
I mean, just look at it like, oh my gosh, wow.
yeah, yeah. The body is amazing. It's super resilient. Looking back, it's hard to say I would have changed anything. It's really helped me learn so much about my body and about the world and myself and how I want to help other people. And so it was tough, and over time just kept accumulating things that worked, things that didn't. And that's what it's about. It's finding the unique approach that's going to help the individual. And that's what I do with my clients. It's not a cookie cutter protocol. Everybody's different. But if we can slow down, meet the person where they're at, the body will tell us. The nervous system is the map. The door opens when we slow down and we pay attention, whether that's the words we're using, the behaviors that we have, the symptoms, or the sensations that we're experiencing.
Well, it was interesting. You said you didn't. you didn't just apply, because you did a lot of research and functional medicine, all this stuff, and I'm a big believer in functional medicine, but you applied it. And that's important. You didn't just, and you lived it. That was it. You lived it. It became your lifestyle. You had to have some change in your lifestyle in order for things to work, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was having a conversation with my therapist a couple months ago, and you know, I thought that healing meant that I had to change and be somebody different. And I certainly did that. I completely changed the way I look at things. Healing happens through new experiences, doesn't happen through force. But ultimately, I told her I think I was a whole lot cooler before all this trauma stuff. And I started controlling myself. And so on some level, yes, we have to make better choices. It's kind of an 80-20 thing, but it's learning to accept ourselves and allow ourselves, and then we can extend that to other people. And I don't think it's so much of changing per se. It's more, how do we relate to ourselves, the world, the environment that we're in, and the circumstances that we're given, and being willing to meet it instead of trying to fix it. Healing is accepting, allowing, surrendering, having compassion, and willing to look at some difficult things. It's not kind of what the wellness world is out there telling us, that you got to change, you got to fix, you got to figure out what's wrong, and that's kind of backwards. But if you've got something wrong with you, the wellness industry has something to sell you, and I would say the medicine that you're looking for is within, and it's when you can listen to your body. When we get really dysregulated, when we get sick, we're looking to the outside for answers. But when we can slow down and listen to our body, that's where the real healing is.
And listening to your body. So what were the steps you took necessary to change all your health issues?
Well, I have like a little 5-step kind of process that I've been working on. I mean, certainly everybody's going to go through it in different ways. And, number one is just education, just learning about our physiology, our biology, how our body handles stress. And what that means is a lot of times normalizing a lot of the symptoms that people are experiencing. They're thinking, oh man, I can't sleep at night. I'm having these digestive issues, and we can understand how the nervous system works and how, when the body is perceiving threat, when it's in a survival state, how it's going to respond. We can kind of take a breath and realize, like, hey, my body's actually not broken, but it is asking me to slow down and pay attention. And so the next thing we do is just awareness, like learning, how do I respond to these symptoms when they come up? If our intention is to make it go away, to fix it, again, that reinforces the problem. It feels like effort and control and working hard is rewarded, and that's certainly part of it. But it's seeing, how does our body respond to those type of tactics. They end up being compulsive behaviors, OCD, if you will. There's kind of a spectrum of that. So once we have that awareness, we've built that education, we've normalized what's going in our body, then we're moving into accepting and allowing, and building capacity. It's kind of like going to the weight room, and day one, you're not going to lift 500 pounds, just like you're not going to be able to sit with that anxiety or that activation that makes you feel like your hair is on fire, that you want to run away, or the fatigue that makes you not want to get out of bed in the morning. Those are all things that we're avoiding. We got to learn to accept it, allow it, and that takes capacity. That's kind of step 3 and 4 there. And once we can sit with it, we can observe it, we can sit there, we can sit in the fire knowing that it's not going to burn us. Well, then we get to expression, because ultimately what these symptoms are, they're unprocessed emotions that weren't allowed. If we're a man, and we can only use anger as a primary emotion, and we're not allowed to be sad or upset or whatever that may, to have grief, then we're going to suppress that. And those emotions are just kind of tapping our shoulder and saying, hey, pay attention to me, slow down. And when we've got the capacity, we've got the awareness and the ability to sit with that, well, then we can express that. We can let the anger out, let the tears come out, learn to set boundaries, say no, quit trying to pleasing other people, walking on eggshells, trying to keep the peace, and ultimately be authentic and be ourselves and express ourselves, and be okay with who we are, instead of constantly suppressing that and making other people happy.
Yeah, I think that's important, what you were saying, learning to say no. I think we do want to please people, make people happy, and you can get in a position where you are pulled in so many directions that you kind of lose yourself.
Hmm.
And it can take a toll on you in so many ways, and with stress and everything on that. Um, you have a podcast too, right?
The Rooted Conversations podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Tell us about that.
What's interesting about that is a year ago, I could barely get out of bed. I had so much fatigue from trying to fix myself, I would say, and going down these rabbit holes, biohacking, changing my diet, supplements, hormones, peptides. I mean, you name it. And I was waiting for my symptoms to resolve for me to get better. And ultimately, what I had to learn and what I teach my clients is, you know, it's great to rest. We absolutely want to learn how to rest, and that's part of this journey. But waiting for an outcome to live our life, again, that reinforces there's a problem. So I had to get in touch with my values. That's what I do with my clients, and mine are connecting with other people. It's freedom. It's health and helping other people. And I wasn't doing that, and so when I could see that, when I got in touch with those values, one of the things we do is, hey, what you do those things with the symptoms. Now there may be some titration, which is doing a little bit at a time. There may be kind of like when you're in the gym, it's called it's like it's kind of adjusting the protocol. So say the protocol was to go at 100%. Well, we're still going to do the thing that we love, but maybe we're going to do it at 50%. We're going to honor the capacity that we have now. And so, a business coach that I was working with, we had an agreement that I would do 10 minutes of work on my business. And that started with the podcast. And, I just started bringing people on that I wanted to talk to and got interested in. And I got a lot of energy from that, even though I had anxiety at the time. I had debilitating fatigue. That would be the nervous system sensitization showing up there. And so I got clear on what I wanted and started doing that with the symptoms. And ironically, that felt like that was going to cause more, like it would be too much. I had a lot of stories around doing the things that I love, but that's what hurt more was not doing those things. And when I started to show my nervous system that I'm actually safe, that these symptoms, I'm safe even with symptoms, that's when the fatigue got better and the anxiety got better, and I started living my life. And that's what I encourage a lot of my clients to do.
Did you find it energizing when you started getting into all this because you have chronic fatigue and anxiety? Did it kind of flip it the other way? And
Well, I'd say this in the beginning, yes, it did flip it. In the beginning, there's a lot of resistance, there's a lot of procrastination. Procrastination is ultimately a freeze state. We have fight, flight, and freeze in the nervous system, and we procrastinate because we're more afraid of being successful, of getting what we want, of what we will feel if we do the thing. So being seen, being heard, maybe being judged, maybe getting it wrong. That's all part of the process. And so it feels like in that state that it's easier to avoid it or delay it than to actually feel that. And so that's where education and awareness comes in. We got to get sick of the old way of doing things enough that we're willing to try and trust. Real safety is what we're looking for. And that happens when we trust ourselves. And so, just taking that baby step, though, doing the titrated way of, starting something new and then learning, oh, I didn't die, when I did this thing, and I actually learned something. I had a good time. I enjoyed myself. And eventually, absolutely there was energy that came from that. I started to look forward to it. And in the beginning, it was tough. I remember sitting there and just crying, doing 10 minutes of work and then doing it eventually and seeing like, that's it. I didn't die. It was okay. And seeing what happens when I'm doing the things that I love, things that I told myself I couldn't do 6 months ago, I'm doing it now. And so I'm showing myself that it's safe through action and through creating new experiences instead of waiting for some outcome to happen. It's building trust and safety and doing the thing you love. That's what helps us get better.
Mm-hmm. And once you started seeing that improvement, how long ago was when you started seeing that improvement? with the podcast and stuff with your?
Um, I would say it's incremental at first. It's amazing when we can, what I see with my clients, what I see with myself, when we, and I also want to be realistic that, this stuff takes time. It's been a hell of a journey. And, but that's not to mean that it's like a white knuckle hell ride the whole time. There's little wins along the way that let us know, like, oh, this is better. And that may be, just the fact that I'm getting excited for it, that you just kind of got to see the ball go through the hoop a couple times. And the more you do that, the more faith you build, the more trust you build. And, for me, I'll even go back to when I started the nervous system stuff years ago. And at that time, I couldn't walk for more than 15 minutes at a time. I had to set a timer. And it was really scary if I missed that timer, because I would be, laid out for 2 weeks, if you will. Also, could only eat meat and salt. There's no other foods that I could eat. I was sensitive to everything. And so when I started going to therapy and talking about some difficult things, a funny thing that happened, I started burping. And I'm like, what is this burping? And before that, I thought I had a million different gut issues, but my body did not like these protocols and detoxes and supplements and restrictive diets. Didn't work. Never got better, just got worse, reinforcing the problem. But when I started burping in therapy, all of a sudden my food sensitivities went away. Was able to eat gluten and milk and pizza and beer and whatever, all the things that I told myself I couldn't have. And the same thing happened with exercise. After a car accident that I was in 2019, I went from the best shape of my life to could walk around the block. And I accidentally set a timer and it didn't go off. And I looked down and it had been 45 minutes and I've been splitting wood with a buddy. And it just, I'm like, oh, all the things happen by accident. They happen through new experiences. It didn't happen through me trying to control everything. And a lot of times that's the answer that the wellness industry has for us, is control your diet. Don't eat these foods, don't work out this way, avoid these type of people, learn to rest, avoid, cut out, restrict. And it just doesn't work. It didn't work for me, and it doesn't work for the clients that I work with as well. So to say here, some things happen quick. This is a healing process. It takes time, but there are little wins along the way that reinforce that it's working.
I'm curious that, because it's called nervous system coach. And if someone is experiencing these situations, how do they identify that as being a nervous system to call somebody for help? I mean, that they won't go to, the, stomach doctor, or go and get medication for depression or anxiety or OCD. How do they figure that out? How have they been able to figure it out?
That's a good question. How do they figure it out? Well, one, I'd say a lot of the people that I work with, and this is myself included, is those things helped a little bit, but they didn't get to the root of it. I was still experiencing symptoms, still having trouble sleeping and gut issues. And it seemed like every time I introduced something new, it just backfired. There'd be a period of time when it felt good, because if control is what we know, instead of safety, control is going to feel good for a period of time. It's kind of like a placebo effect. And then the body's going to tighten again. You're going to feel, the gut stuff's going to happen. The anxiety will happen, the sleepless nights. And certainly, there are people that are actually physically sick and have these issues, but I don't see many of them. A lot of the people that are dealing with what I'm dealing with, it stems from early developmental trauma, early trauma that we have in childhood, shock traumas, other injuries that we experience along the way. And then there's dysregulation. And then and that can come from trauma, from illness, can even come from, I just got off a podcast this afternoon with a functional medicine doctor. A lot of times functional medicine gets demonized, just like nervous system regulation can. There's a shadow side of everything. If somebody's just cookie cutter protocol and throwing the kitchen sink at you, not giving you a choice in your healing process, then that's going to cause dysregulation, just like a moldy environment or a tick bite. But here's the thing, those type of illnesses that we constantly see in the chronic disease world, Lyme disease, mold, heavy metals, diabetes, what's going on in your life at that time. These lower emotions tend to attract these things. That's why one person can be in a car accident and walk away fine. The other person, can't sleep for a week, or one person gets bit by a tick and is fine, and another person doesn't do really well. At the time I got a tick bite, my brother had passed away, and I had moved out of the house with him. And it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It's We're so quick to think that we know everything about the body. The body is a freaking amazing miracle machine, and we don't have everything figured out. And I think we disregard some of these things that we call woo woo, that are our emotions, and how we relate to the world and the environment, and the traumas that we carry, and the emotions that we don't allow. If I'm walking around with a bunch of anger and grief, my capacity is down. And capacity in the nervous system world is kind of like, can I deadlift that 500 pounds? Well, if I got a tiger on my back, I can. And that makes sense. That doesn't mean your body's broken. It just means nobody taught you how to be with your emotions in your body. And that's a process. It's like learning the language of safety, of being authentically ourselves, expressing ourselves. And then then that sack that we're carrying around gets a lot lighter. And these things that we call symptoms, they go away because they don't have to get our attention anymore, because now we are the ones paying attention and we're listening. So it's just super complex. And there's a lot of things that I do know, a lot of things that I don't know. And these are just the things that I've accumulated over 20 years of doing this work and going down every damn rabbit hole that I could.
Yeah. And no, it's interesting. You're so right, Mitch. It's about our mindset. It's about how our mind thinks about pain, suffering, injury, things going wrong in our lives. It's how we deal with it. They talk about disease, it's dis-ease. And if you are not at ease when you're going through pain, it's going to be a very bad process. And that's what leads to disease. So a lot of times people who might get diagnosed with cancer recover, it's the reason they did is because they believed they could.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't give up, because we can give a hopelessness of giving up, and our brain is this can control the body more than anything in the world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's one thing with me. Especially when I had Lyme disease, I just would not accept that diagnosis. And I think diagnoses that we get, they're temporary. It's a snapshot for a piece in time, and it's information. And if I can take that information and I can slow down, I can learn how to eat good, and get some sunlight, and get some good sleep at night. Learn how to get in touch with my body. All these different things, they're clues. And it does take a resilient person to go through this journey. And that's something that's where a coach comes in, is so handy. Someone to kind of hold your hand and walk you through that process. I did not do this alone. I had numerous mentors and coaches and doctors and therapists, and millions of body workers, and they all contributed a little bit. And it wasn't that I was relying on this. It's kind of like a buffet. It's a la carte. You pick up and put down what feels good, and learn something and keep going. And there is no failing. There's no good and bad. I think it's just information. The more I can meet myself in whatever decision I make, and trust that I'm going to be okay, and take the next little bit of information and pivot and make another decision. The steps along the way become more visible, and it's easier to make those decisions and take those actions that are ultimately going to get us where we want to go.
Yep.
That's
Sherrie.
the acceptance part, right? Like accepting, like, okay, I have situation and I need to pay attention, because if I don't, my body will make me pay attention. So what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, hopefully find somebody like you and walk them
Amen.
through it and help them. I think a lot of it is not knowing. And that's the fear, is they have this going on and they don't know. And it can be frightening, anxiety attacks can be frightening. All this other stuff. So it's having somebody kind of like break it down to them and saying, hey, this is what's going on. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I hear there is uncertainty, and it's, we want to be certain so bad. We want to know everything, and definitely we want a magic pill um, to help us, but that's not how life works. And so that's where education and awareness comes in. There's a lot of therapists out there that are able to prescribe medicine, and they're sitting on a couch with you, and they want to help, and yet they have never done therapy themselves. They've never been in the shoes that you've been in. They can't meet people at the depth that they need that requires healing when we're dealing with these chronic symptoms. And so I mean, just having somebody there that can kind of walk you through that process, reassure you, build that awareness and education, so that eventually, kind of the analogy that I have is that when you've got these crazy symptoms going on, and you're really going to accept them and allow them, it's kind of like sitting in a fire and knowing that you're not going to get burned, and that takes a lot of education, a lot of guts, a lot of awareness. And it seems like hard work, and that it's more about the surrender, acceptance, allowing, having compassion for yourself, and just taking it one day at a time.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Mitch, where can we find more information on you?
Yeah, appreciate that. My website's mitchwebb.com. I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. It's usually K Mitch Webb, or just my name, Mitch Webb. And you've got my podcast, Rooted Conversations, and I believe I've given you guys a free, if I haven't, let me know, free nervous system quiz to kind of get people started, let them know what's their nervous system state been like recently, get them some free resources on how to regulate, and then there's a free 30-minute chat if somebody's interested and want to see if we'd be a good fit to work together.
Excellent.
Your website?
mitchwebb.com.
Mitchwebb.com. WEBB.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Awesome.
And go to storehousemediagroup.com for all things publishing, media, and podcasting. Appreciate it, guys. That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Storehouse